Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is going to be a very basic introduction into trauma medical, or I don't know how to put it, combat care, right? Mainly dealing with gunshot wounds, shrapnel wounds, stuff like that. So in light of recent events, I am making this video for educational purposes. Now, first off, typically how us in the Army are taught is when you are in a gunfight and let's say I have a buddy that goes down, right? My first reaction to that should be to get rid of the threat, right? So typically we would either, react to contact or whatever and eliminate the threat, or at the very least make sure the threat is no longer there, right? Especially in light of recent events. Next, what we would do is we would move that casualty to cover, right? Get him out of the kill box, or kill zone is what we call it, and get him to a place to where it is safe and we can pull security and keep him out of the fight while our other guys are, fighting and suppressing the enemy or whatever, or if there's even a fight going on anymore. Then, after he is in cover, we go and we start performing aid. Now, typically what you do is you follow this sequence. It's called MARCH, right? And MARCH stands for massive bleeding, airway, respirations, circulations, and then hypothermia/head injuries. The reason you start with massive bleeding is that's what causes most casualties on the battlefields. I want to say it's between 70 and 80% of battlefield casualties are caused from massive bleeding. So that's why you see everybody carrying tourniquets on them. Typically you have about 2 in your IFAK, or in this case I have 1 on the outside and I have 1 on a different part of my kit. I think I carry 3 on me. But tourniquets are a really great and useful tool, especially for leg and arm injuries, right? So how you would use a tourniquet is, this one's kind of screwed up. It's not how I would set it up typically. It's just kind of one of the random ones I had. So I usually set it up like this, to where it's folded a certain way. And then I can grab this red pull tab right here. I can rip it out, right? And then I'll usually seesaw it under my own or the casualty's leg and run it through here, right? When you run it through, you're going to cinch it down. You want to cinch it down as tight as you possibly can. So that way when you turn the windlass, which is this big stick right here, it's not going to take you as many turns to get it tight. So I'm going to turn the windlass. Let's say do that. Let's see how that is. That's about right. I only had to turn the windlass about 1.5, 2 times for me to get a good and tight tourniquet, right? You don't want to tighten it too tight, as if you're going to break some bones or something like that. We want to tie it too enough to you can't get 2 fingers under the tourniquet. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but I can barely move this leg right now without straining really hard. Right? And generally, a time frame we kind of hold ourselves to, we want it on within about 15 seconds. Because if I remember correctly, it can take anywhere between, I want to say, 1 and 3 minutes to bleed out. And a tourniquet is the only thing that you will ever apply to a casualty on the X. Now, on the X is typically referred to as a casualty has just gotten shot or he's just gotten injured, and he's still in the kill box/kill zone. And this is the only thing that you would apply in that area, is what we call a hasty tourniquet. So if the guy's leg is blown off, you only apply that, and then you're going to move him out of the area if you have proper security. Now, if you don't have security, it sucks to suck. and it's unfortunate, but you cannot go and retrieve that casualty. Do not do it. A lot of people try, and what it does is it causes more, right? So if we don't have fire superiority, more casualties are going to be a result of that, right? A thing that we use is dead bodies attract more dead bodies. Now, with that being said, the person may not be dead, but he is probably pretty hurt and may or may not be able to move. Now, we do have some sort of commands that we do yell out that it's kind of cringy, but we tell them to return fire, get to cover, perform self-aid. Whenever we're saying it out and whatnot, it sounds, super weird and it's kind of like redundant, but it is true. You gotta yell those things to make sure that they are, thinking properly and they're trying to get to cover, and they're like, oh, I actually need to get out of here, right? So, after you perform your hasty tourniquet and you get him back behind cover, you're going to do what's called a blood sweep. Now, blood sweep is either, is usually a raking motion, right? Kind of bear clawing. And the reason you're bear clawing is so that way you can find holes in their body as well, at least based off of what I was taught. Now, I'm not a medic, I am an infantryman. I know very basic TCCC, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. I am only qualified in that. I'm not qualified in anything higher than that. That's like a basic level 1 task, is what we would call it. So I am not an expert. Have a very basic knowledge of how to basically keep somebody alive for them to take care of that casualty, right? So anyways, back to the raking. You're going to be raking across their body. Usually you want to start from head down, and you're doing one side of the body at a time. So you're starting from one side, you're going down, raking everywhere, trying to find where blood is at. And when you find blood, right, and you find a hole, you find something, you're going to treat that. Now, let's say I find a hole in somebody's chest somewhere, let's say chest cavity. I'm going to grab what is called a chest seal, right? Because I can't put a tourniquet and I can't put gauze inside of the chest cavity because it is so huge. Because the point of gauze is you basically just to pack something until you can't pack any more gauze in it, so you could go through multiple rolls at once. So right now we have a chest seal, and I would apply it right here, and I would apply it on the exhale, right? So you can wait for the casualty to exhale and breathe out, and then you're going to apply that chest seal, right? So when it breathes in, it sucks it up against it. Now, there are two types of chest seals. You have vented chest seals and non-vented chest seals. Vented chest seals have I don't want to say cutouts, but they have some sort of vent in them to allow air to exit, and then air doesn't exit when it breathes in, kind of like I don't want to say a bear trap. It's kind of the same concept as like a boar trap. Like they can get in, but they can't get out. It's kind of the same way with a chest seal, except in reverse. Air can get out, but it can't get in. If that makes sense. So that's how those work. And usually, if there's an entrance wound, there's going to be an exit wound, right? So you need to look on their back and apply a chest seal there as well. Now, there is a thing called tension pneumothorax, which I really won't get into because that's a bit complicated. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's basically when one of the lungs are collapsed and you need to apply what's called a needle D, which is something I don't have right now, and I really can't provide an example for it. So we'll kind of skip that. Next, we'll go into gauze, right? So you're doing your blood sweep, right? And let's say you find somewhere in the armpit, and you need to pack somewhere in the armpit. So you're going to take your gauze, which is right here. I have what's called Quick Clot. It's combat gauze. It has a sort of chemical that, when it touches blood, it starts to cause it to clot a lot quicker, and so it can stop bleeding as fast as possible. So what you do is you're going to rip it open, and you're going to start packing it. Let's just say, for example, I'm packing my arm or my armpit, right? I'm going to put as much gauze into that hole and into that vein as much as possible until it basically, I can't anymore, until I can't pack anything anymore. And then after that, I'm going to hold pressure for what I believe is 3 minutes. And then after that, you're going to take your trauma bandage, right? I have a 6-inch here and I have a 4-inch trauma bandage, and make sure you wrap it tightly. You don't wrap it so tight that it's going to cut off circulation, but you wrap it tight enough to where it's maintaining that pressure on that injury, so that way it's not going to bleed out anymore. And like I said, you have your combat gauze, and there's also another type of gauze, which is just it's just regular gauze. There's nothing special about it. It doesn't have any sort of chemical on it. It's just sterile gauze, cloth, and you just do the same thing, pack the wound. So usually you would want to pack it with the QuikClot first. Use that combat gauze first, if I'm not mistaken, and then you would go to your regular, rolled gauze, which is what I have here. So that way it's clotting faster, and then, in my opinion, you're not wasting as much QuikClot. So you should probably use the QuikClot first and then go to the regular gauze, that way you're not wasting a whole bunch. Now, typically, how the Army trains it is you use the Casualties IFAK, which is what I have here. It's pretty big, at least mine is. Or I say it's big, but there's a lot bigger ones that you can see on other people's kits. But you would use the Casualties IFAK, not your own, because the items in that IFAK are meant for you, not for everybody else, unless you absolutely need to. That's how we train it. Now for, let's say, a self-defense scenario, that's kind of a different story, and you may not have, all the items I have here. You may just have, a regular tourniquet, or maybe some gauze in the back of your truck or something like that. Because as far as I'm aware, medical stuff can be pretty expensive, but it is something good to have in case of, an active shooter scenario, which we saw the other day. Now, in relation to neck wounds, which was kind of what happened in that certain event that happened the other day, that is something that you would also use gauze for, and it's kind of, a shitty scenario what happened to him, but there really was not much you could do in there besides, put pressure on the wound and just pack as much gauze into that cavity, into that vein as much as possible, and just hold pressure until, it stops or some higher medical care arrives to help you with that. And honestly, that's really about it as a very basic introduction. I wish I had more training pieces, ones that have been used already, so that way I can actually, demonstrate how to actually do these things. But unfortunately, I don't at the moment. I will try to get some at some point to, get a better, I guess, video or class on it. But that's about all I got right now. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for coming.